I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. This week, should small businesses be allowed to stay open during a lockdown?
It's hard to say. It's a tough decision for anybody. I think the government should be supporting people.
People still have to earn a living.
A lockdown? Well, I don't know. A lockdown is a lockdown.
And when it's all over with, hey, we're back to business.
It appears there's been some rethinking when it comes to running an economy during a pandemic. Here in Ontario, for example, several major retailers have called upon the provincial government to allow non-essential businesses to open at 25% capacity during a lockdown. It was also pointed out that with fewer stores open, more people would tend to congregate in bigger stores, therefore elevating the risk. So, what do you think about this? Our question.
Should small businesses be allowed to stay open during a lockdown?
I think that all small businesses that are providing essential services, essential supplies, like what most of the grocery stores are having, even Walmart carries groceries, and they should be limiting the big box stores from selling stuff that aren't essential. This way, everybody has an equal opportunity to maintain their businesses inside of the essential supply chain, where they provide a great service to local people like myself who feel much safer in a smaller environment, and I can control when I go in based on the number of people I can actually see in a space, as opposed to walking down an aisle and being bombarded with 4 people coming down the wrong way.
I feel very sorry for them. I think I would like them to stay open with little bit more restriction, but I think they need to be open to have a revenue every month, every week.
I would like to see everything, all the diligence that you could do to get rid of this darn thing, right? Get the vaccine, and in short term, if we got to suffer a bit more with whatever we got to do, I guess we got to do it.
Yes, I think so. And then the bigger ones should be shut down so that they get a better shot this time around.
A lockdown? Well, I don't know. A lockdown is a lockdown. I'd have to say no.
That's such a tough question. Likely, yeah.
If they can do it safely, I agree, yeah, they should stay open. If they can do it safely and have your social distancing or physical distancing, yeah.
But our numbers are just going up and up and up, so it's not working what we're doing.
Well, I guess if they're following the guidelines and maybe going over and above and beyond. I know I've been to a lot of big box stores where, like even yesterday afternoon at the Cornwall, there was quite a few people, and I would say that, and it's hard for them because they're in a mall, but I would say if they're following the guidelines to the strictest measure, that they should be allowed to be open.
You know what, I own some businesses, and I think that, hey, without customers, if they're not safe, we won't have customers as a business later on anyway. So why not lock down, have the government take over, pay for the people that can't support themselves, leave the essential services running so we're all safe, and when it's all over with, hey, we're back to business.
They took the risk to open their business, and if that income isn't coming in, they're going to lose that entire risk they took to open that business. I don't think it's fair to them.
You know, a lot of the smaller ones we go to, they got somebody sitting by the door, they got a table there, they make sure your hands are washed, you got your mask on. I actually feel better in some of those than I do going into Walmart or a superstore, to be quite honest, where there's 1,000 people you're sharing the air with.
I think that small businesses should be allowed to stay open. I think everybody is exercising proper precautions. People still have to earn a living. And I think that's one of the things that we need to understand is that everyone's doing their best to protect their business and themselves and their customers. But unfortunately, people are losing their livelihood. So I totally think they should be able to stay open.
100%.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's imperative we try and support our small businesses. I mean, they're the backbone of our retail, and I personally, again, would rather support local and home and keep that revenue in the home province or the home country versus profits going elsewhere.
I think if we're going to lock places down, essential businesses should stay open. In this day and age, I think adapting in business is huge, and the better businesses can adapt. They should be selling online if they can. People are dying. It's hard to say. It's a tough decision for anybody. I think the government should be supporting people. I think that's the government's responsibility. And so if they have to shut businesses down, they should be getting financial support or whatever kind of support they need to maintain their employees and maintain their livelihood.
It's complicated, that's what I would say. So I don't know 100% what I think about it, like, because I haven't fully studied the data. Like, from a personal perspective, I understand the struggles, but from a long-term perspective of getting over this thing, I'm just not sure. That's my answer. I don't know.
I think with the number of cases that we have right now in Ottawa, it's probably okay. But if they start to increase again, I tend to support the lockdown measures.
I would feel more safe in a small store, to be honest. It makes more sense. Like, there's people there, they can see who comes in, they can monitor better. They actually care because they want to stay open and make money because it's their livelihood.
It's essential for them, for their livelihood, you know. That's what puts food on their plate at the end of the day. Maybe it's not like on a large scale like grocery stores or stuff like that, but for them it's very important, and I think they should have the right to remain open.
It's hard to say. I can't say for every single business because it really depends, right? You know, like I think like gyms and stuff like that, no, maybe. Like that's, but like restaurants, like how they're operating right now, you can just order out, things like that. There are ways around it for the most part, but I really feel like they really need some kind of federal support, a backbone, because like there's really nothing they can do at this point. We need some kind of help.
The federal government has committed to investing roughly $100 billion over the next 3 years in the post-pandemic economy. It's expected to kick in once everyone is vaccinated and life returns back to normal. So during and after COVID-19, where do you think the federal government should invest? Our question.
In what areas should federal money be spent during the pandemic?
You know, I think that the federal government should probably give money to some of the healthcare places. Obviously, I think the infrastructure healthcare in Canada might not be entirely prepared for this epidemic. I think one of the big things is going to be ICU beds, so definitely making sure that that's taken care of. But also, I guess, evening the playing field. I tried to take my mom for a foot health care appointment, and she wasn't allowed to go into the office, but they would come to her home, and so that was a little odd. So I just kind of think making sure that we're properly funding all health care for everyone is important.
I think they've done a pretty good job so far. I really don't have a hell of a lot of a criticism for them. I think the government's done pretty good for, when you look at other countries, like particularly the States, where they're dragging their heels on a lot of relief efforts. I think Trudeau's doing pretty good.
I think consumer good is doing good, like okay, so that doesn't require. But I think mostly travel and these kind of sectors,
tourism and travel actually,
which get impacted.
I think these business should get at least with some support from the government.
Well, I certainly think that some of the small people or small shops that need help should get some help. Because like I'm a senior, I did get a little bit of help, which I'm quite happy with, and I don't ask for any more. But I do feel sorry for the small business guy who just can't make it being closed. And how are they ever going to catch up? I don't know.
I think it should be focused in general. I'll give you my answer in general would be focused on initiatives that would help ensure survival of local businesses, local employment, and those businesses that really kind of drive the economy locally. Money stays here, revenue stays here, taxes stay here, employment stays here.
Well, predominantly it should be distributed with the healthcare agencies.
Well, right now it should be protecting the small businesses and the people who, can't afford to keep their businesses, can't afford to pay their rent for their business. They're losing it's really killing the small businesses, small store owners, mom and pop shops like that. And I think that's going to have a really big effect right now in the future. It's going to be really hard to catch up, and also the people who are being laid off right now, like the unemployment's gone crazy. I know they're doing some things about that, but really the businesses, the small businesses.
I think 100% supporting people and the small businesses.
Yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. Like, the cost to restart a broken economy far outweighs the cost to ride a broken economy on some sort of level that's surviving.
Definitely in education, so that the kids can have a good upbringing and a good way of seeing things, a good backup that can help them develop as they should, and mental health services, violence against women services for sure, that's one too. Charities, homelessness, all those things I think are very important.
Directly to the people is probably better than loans to businesses, say.
Right now they're taking care of the old age houses, and they try to take care of the teachers. They leave the schools open. I'm a teacher myself, retired, but I'm still work part-time. And I think for the economy it's good to leave it open, and it's good for the mental of the kids to go to school, and also it helps the parents who have to go to work. I think they did a good job. They cannot do more. That's what they do now, right?
Well, I think it's great that the feds support everybody. I mean, the other alternative is a recession or depression. I went through the one in 1981. It didn't work very well, and you know, you're going to go to hawk the country anyway, regardless. So you may as well, if you're going to go in, don't bring everybody down with you. Interest rates, inflation, everything would skyrocket. To me, is what the alternative would be. So, like I say, I've actually lived through that one, and a couple more there.
I think they've done an amazing job with their CERB programs, their business programs. Some of the business programs could probably use a bit more tweaking, like the rental assistance. However, inside of that, this is something brand new for everybody all across the world. So I think the federal government is doing the best they possibly can with the resources we have. And the amount of money they've spent on the CERB and CRB at the current moment is unbelievable. And I think many people are benefiting from it and surviving with it. So I think they've done a great job for the resources that we have and the experience we have.
I think they're going about it the right way in terms of supporting communities of the workforce. I think the money they should spend definitely needs to be on the working class, people who are working for a living, who are earning wages, and who are losing those wages. So I think I always fall back on the working class. If it's helping them, then it's good, because they need the help. They're the majority, and they're actually keep the economy running. So I think that what helps the working class is best for the country.
How many Canadian prime ministers have served during Queen Elizabeth II's reign? 9, 12, or 21?
9.
I'll go with 12.
21. No, 12. 21. Final answer.
I'm going to go 9.
12. 9. 12.
12.
You know what? It's 12.
Really?
Really?
Good. I'm happy.
During the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, 12 Canadian prime ministers have held office. It begins with Louis Saint Laurent, who was prime minister at the time of Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953. He was followed by John Diefenbaker, Lester Pearson, Pierre Trudeau, Joe Clark, John Turner, Brian Mulroney, Kim Campbell, Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin, Stephen Harper, and Justin Trudeau. Queen Elizabeth II is also the longest reigning British monarch in history. Vancouver's Mayor Kennedy Stewart says his city is in the depths of an opioid crisis, and he's asking the federal government to do something it's never done before: decriminalize street drugs within a city's limits. He feels removing the criminal element will help bring overdoses down. Kennedy Stewart's motion to move forward with this has been passed unanimously by Vancouver City Council. And the idea has also been proven to be successful in places like Portugal for quite some time. But would it work here? Our question: should simple possession of illegal street drugs be decriminalized?
Absolutely. I think it should be treated as an illness rather than a problem and a criminal act. And people who need these drugs to function should have more support and should have more resources to consume safely and then eventually get rid of their habits instead of just throwing them in jail.
100% decriminalization. Yep. I'm not saying it shouldn't be illegal to sell them, but like treating addicts as criminals does not help the epidemic of drug use.
I think addiction is an illness and it should be treated as such.
No, because they're getting the wrong ingredient very often. They're getting handmade, homemade, basement-made chemicals, which alters the mind drastically, and you can see it, especially now, on the streets.
I'm pretty libertarian about that kind of thing. Yeah, I think our experience with weed has been pretty successful. So yeah, obviously it gets crazy when we start talking about PHP or whatever, and even heroin starts to be pretty scary.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Why do you think that?
I work with Vancouver Coastal Health, and I work with marginalized folk downtown east side. And I know that if it was decriminalized, they'd have a better chance at getting a job, just an every better shot at life. And it's so minuscule, it doesn't matter.
Decriminalized? Yeah. Yeah, why not? I mean, they've tried everything else. Nothing seems to work. We all know what's going on down in there. I figure they're just doing a containment strategy myself. I used to work near that area, so I got a good taste of what it's like for a lot of people. However, having said that, it's the most benevolent neighborhood I have ever seen in my life, anywhere I've gone. So if it's worth a try.
And we see it as a darkness in our city. They should be looking at it as just like any other healthcare issue. Cancer, they talk about. IVF, they talk about, but for some reason, anybody who has any other type of ailment due to illicit drugs, they treat like the dark side of the city. So absolutely, if they did something like that, but they need to have a plan in place where they can transition people, aid people with it before decriminalizing. And there are many places that have done similar things. There's Amsterdam, who's also done things with the death. We can look at how they've transitioned from their population and their belief systems inside of it. And then you've got Portugal, who's also decriminalized drugs as well. Because there are a lot of high-functioning drug addicts out there currently who are in many other industries that we see, but because we don't see it, we think it's completely okay.
I don't think it's a good idea to do that. These people, they will feel free, and we'll have more and more and more people on the street with the drugs.
So you're against
Yes, I'm against.
And because you think
it will be worse. We have enough. They were before they were east of Burrard. Now they're all over here too. These people.
I think it's good they support it. I'm not sure the kind of help that people who use drugs need in reality compared to policy. So I would always defer to somebody who knows a lot more about the drug industry and addiction, because these people are addicted. They don't choose to do drugs and die. They have some kind of addiction problem. So that type of addiction has to be treated, and maybe we don't treat it well enough, right, to solve these problems.
Yeah, they may as well decriminalize it. Well, it's out there anyway. They're not going to stop it. I mean, so you charge a guy for having a small amount of illicit drugs. He's not selling it. What's the good of it? They don't put him in, they don't lock him up. I'm not sure they need to for that, So I would say they may as well. Maybe they could try to figure out a way to supply them with the drugs in a more safe way, and crime would go down, everything would go down.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think there's time for a change. The way it's working right now is not, so let's try something different.
Decriminalized? No, the drugs are drugs. Yeah, there's good ones, yeah, there's bad ones, but a lot of the bad ones, no, why should make those legal?
Absolutely.
Why?
Makes sense to me. Well, harm reduction. I mean, these people aren't criminals. They're sick. It's just, it's like back in the days, and not so long ago, marijuana was illegal. I mean, that never made sense then. It doesn't make sense now. I think the same principle applies to opioids. I'm not an opioid user, but I can sympathize with those people.
I think where it's been shown in some countries like Portugal and other countries where they have programs where they don't make them into criminals but treat them as an illness, that it's worked well.
It should absolutely be decriminalized. It is not a criminal issue. It is a medical issue, and it should be treated as such. It is completely outrageous to me that we are losing so many people, like in the hundreds, to like a variety of drug overdoses, when like really we should be treating it. We should be funding safe injection sites, and we should be treating it as the medical issue it is and not as a criminal issue.
No. Why? Well, because people need to be responsible for themselves, and if they want to go to safe injection sites and everything else, that should be tied in with a treatment program of some sort, because it's a free pass. People need to take responsibility for themselves. I know that's difficult, and I don't underestimate the problems of that. But at the same time, if people aren't taking responsibility, they'll take a free ride.
For Canada's airline industry, COVID-19 has been a worst-case scenario. It has resulted in the cancellation of regional routes within the country, as well as the layoffs of thousands of workers. In the recent fiscal update, the federal government said it would provide $1.2 billion for airports, airport infrastructure, and regional airlines. But the airlines say this is not enough. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians how they feel about the government providing this type of assistance. Our question:
should Canada's airline industry receive a bailout?
You know, that's a big one. I think there's a lot to be said for and certainly against management. You know, I've heard a lot of stories, but, you know, what do I know? I'm not connected with the airline. Should they get a bailout? I think a lot of people should get some sort of bailout.
That's a tough one. I don't think they should bail out the airline industry, because we're talking about billionaires basically owning the airline industry who have the necessary capital and currency to fix their problems, possibly, or reinvest. But I don't know. But then if you look at the jobs that the airline industry provides, again, you're talking about the working class. If they're suffering, then they would have to step in and help the airline industry.
Yeah, at least the Air Canada, the big ones, you got to be able to fly, and it's going to come back. It's going to come back. Everybody get vaccinated and get back on the... I want to go to Vegas myself. So.
I don't know. They charge pretty hefty for everything, so I don't know.
I think they need to help out a little. Obviously, when things do calm down, you still want to be able to travel. I know for myself that would be a big thing, because I need to travel to and from Europe. So I think airlines throughout the world need to be helped out, because they're having a hard time at the moment. So definitely something could be done to help out the airlines at the moment. So yeah.
Canada's airline industry, I would say perhaps not a bailout, but some form of assistance so that they can rework how they operate. They may be, I don't know the airline industry very well, so they may be extremely top heavy in terms of their salaries, which makes it even harder for them to operate in the black. Most companies who are operating in the red like that, in which they probably were always borderline, they have to figure out how to trim their costs before a bailout comes through. So the bailout, yes, in the sense that aiding them to create a much better solvent company, as opposed to just throwing money at a system that has always been bleeding.
Do we want to have them in the future? Then yeah, we got to bail them out, because they're not going to survive. They're going to take away our control tower in Regina. So where are we going to go to travel from?
Yeah, or perhaps some sort of loan, like that, that can be paid off over long periods of time.
They've bailed out worse things.
Auto industry.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I don't think airlines should get bailouts. They have before in the past. And again, it all depends. I mean, it depends on how you're being impacted, right? I mean, airlines are a multi-billion-dollar business. I mean, that's no comparison to a small business that maybe makes, you know, $40,000 to $100,000 a year while they're making billions, right? It's easy for them to recover quickly because everybody travels. You know, for us to recover, it's going to be a lot harder, right? So
it's hard to say with like the whole travel industry and hotels and even, you know, kind of like even like amusement parks or kind of parks like that where it's hard to say. Like it's trying to keep people safe, but also it's very damaging for them. It's hard to see because I want them to do well and I want them to survive this, but I don't know what's wisest in that case to do or not to do.
I would have a hard time saying airlines should get bailouts, only because they're a business like everybody else, and I think you need to take care of yourself. Although, you know, they don't have a whole lot of choice in the matter, so that's a harder one for me to answer. I see both sides of it. You surely wouldn't want the country to be without any airline service.
That's a very good question. I think we need airlines. But I think you know, as a private business, we have to be careful on how we bail them out. So I think it should be more of a, rather than a you know, kind of a free gift of money, it should be some kind of money in return for something else, whether that's equity or something else. It just can't be a handout.
From what I understand, the airline industry's been operating largely on a system of pulling the money out for shareholders as much as they can and not storing reserves for profit, as it probably should be, as we're advised as citizens. You know, we're supposed to have at least 3 months money aside just in case a problem happens. Like immediately as soon as this pandemic hit, the airline said, we don't have any money.
Maybe they should get assistance to put in more COVID procedures if they really feel the need to. But I feel like money could be spent on better things right now because there's so many problems in our own country that we need to deal with before leaving and traveling, you know?
Yes, it's vital. It's part of our, as well as an institution, it's vital.
I mean, we're still going to want to continue visiting our families. You know, there's still going to be a demand, you know, once the vaccine is out. So the rest of it is just big money moves.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.